So I can see your hesitation on that.
Yeah.
Tell me why.
Well, I mean, I get it though. Like as far as like, the whole training thing, like we've talked about, in the past, like when you bring somebody on, like instead of doing it yourself, like just go back to that. Like as a solopreneur, I'm going to just do it myself. I don't want to train somebody to do it. But once you train somebody to do it, then now that's where the profit comes in for you because now they know how to do it. It's a cost at the beginning, right? Because you have to take the time and the effort and it's hard or whatever. But then once they know how to do it, now you're free to do this and now they're doing this. So it's a multiplying effect.
Treading water is the same as drowning to people like you and me. You better start swimming. Welcome to I'm the One podcast. I'm your host, Rob Green. What's up, Casey? How's it going today?
Good. How you doing?
Good, man. Good. I think we're going to talk a little bit about business.
Yeah. Well, I had a question. So I'm a solopreneur, and so I wear all the hats, and I know that's not what you're supposed to do, and I understand that, and I'm trying to work my way through that. But I wanted to ask you, going from when you started as an entrepreneur, and then building teams, and getting the employees, and just that sort of concept, like. Can you tell me a little bit more about managing teams and that type of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, this could also be called all the things I've done wrong. So we could call this episode either one of those things.
Okay.
But I'd say that I was slow to learn this. I think I'm a typical doer, want to get things done fast, don't want to wait for people. And so I think yeah, hard to believe. I want to do too much, man. And so I had all these ideas and I wore all those hats. Like I was a solopreneur for far too long. Yeah. Right. And I hear this a lot from people. They're like, oh, well, if they can't do as good a job as I can. Right.
Well, right.
And so people are hesitant or reluctant to outsource or delegate. These are one of the excuses on why we don't delegate as an entrepreneur. And what I've learned is that we have to have a team. I mean, there are no $1 billion one-person companies. They don't exist. Sure. Even if that's not your goal, you need to leverage other people, right? And so one thing I've learned through Strategic Coach is to have a self-managing team. And I don't think we're quite there yet, to be honest, but we're close, the closest we've ever been. And what I mean by a self-managing team is the team manages themselves on a day-to-day basis without my oversight and input on a day-to-day basis. Okay. That's the goal. That's where we're shooting for right now. And the goal after that is a self-multiplying team.
Now with that, the way I look at that right away is like you would have to have somebody that's sort of your right-hand person that does the managing of everybody else. That's the way I look at it. But is that wrong?
No, I don't think it's wrong. I mean, we did EOS for a long time, Entrepreneurial Organization System, which is like a blueprint for how to run a small or medium business from the book Traction by Gino Wickman. Okay. And we utilize that. We use kind of a hybridized version of that now. But that's got like a visionary at the top, which is where I put myself. And then you put an integrator right below that on the org chart. And that's kind of like your right-hand person, right? Okay, yeah. I think that is one way to do it. Mm-hmm. The challenge as a small business is you need, I call it hands-on keyboard. You need people that can manage and also be experts or do what they do well with hands-on keyboard. You can't as a small business hire somebody just to manage 3 other people. Oh, because you've got a small team, right? So when you're starting out, it's like you need people that can manage, and also be hands-on keyboard at the same time and grow, right? And so that's been the biggest thing I think I've learned is I tend to want to hire people and teach them and coach them. Okay, and I think I now want to hire people that have been there and done it. Okay, as opposed to teaching people and pulling those people in.
That's nice. That's a dream, right?
Yeah, the dream is why not put the people that already know how to do this in the right spot, right, and put them in the right seat.
You have to pay them more.
You do have to pay them more,
right?
But do you have to pay them more, or do you actually pay them less? Because I would argue now, when I chalk this up with all the mistakes I've made, I have invested and put so much money into people that didn't work out that I think I would have been cheaper for me to hire someone with more experience that was better. And that. Sure. So I can see your hesitation on that.
Yeah.
Tell me why.
Well, I mean, I get it though. Like as far as like, the whole training thing, like we've talked about, in the past, like when you bring somebody on, like instead of doing it yourself, like just go back to that. Like as a solopreneur, I'm going to just do it myself. I don't want to train somebody to do it. But once you train somebody to do it, then now that's where the profit comes in for you because now they know how to do it. It's a cost at the beginning, right? Because you have to take the time and the effort and it's hard or whatever. Yeah. But then once they know how to do it, now you're free to do this and now they're doing this. So it's a multiplying effect. Does that make sense?
It does. And that's what I did wrong.
Okay.
So what I've learned since then is that I don't want, because delegation is down. I want to hire up.
Yeah.
The dream scenario is I want to hire somebody that knows more about whatever they're doing than I do.
Okay.
And you're absolutely right. That costs more money typically. From a salary perspective. Now, if I don't know anything about the process, it doesn't have to cost more because I know nothing, because the benchmark is I know nothing.
Sure.
Right?
Right. You can't teach anybody.
Yeah, I can't teach them anyway, right?
Yeah. No, I like that.
That makes it hard to hire the right person anyway, because you don't know what to ask for, right? So, when I first started doing e-commerce and building brands, I have no experience of building a brand or a logo and things like that. So hired, off of Fiverr and Upwork, because I just didn't know what good was.
Sure.
And so I think the big thing about the self-managing team that comes into play is, can you get the right leaders in the right place that have hands-on keyboard experience, that have been there and done it, and then can they bring out their team in whatever category it is, whether it's financials or marketing or operations. Can they do that so that they don't? The happiest moment of my life is when I go, hey, do you want me to attend this meeting? And they're like, no, we don't need you. God, I remember the first time that happened, I did cartwheels down the hallway. I was so excited because it's like, okay, great. You don't need my input here because you guys already got it. You got it handled. I don't need to be validated by included in every meeting.
Sure.
I'd rather have you guys run it without me with a better outcome.
Yeah.
That's the dream scenario to me.
Yeah.
And then I can stay in my wheelhouse, stay with my unique abilities. I can focus on things that I can add value and I can leverage it. Right.
Yeah.
And I think having the best team that is a self-managing team really is about leverage. It's how do you leverage your time for a greater result than you would ever be able to do by yourself, because you're wearing hats and you're doing all the activities that you're probably not world-class at. Nobody's world-class at everything.
Right.
Even if you're world-class at a couple of different activities, there's no chance you're world-class at everything.
No.
So even if they're good at it, that might be better than you being bad at it.
Sure.
Right? And I think it compounds. And in today's society, especially in e-commerce like we do, I just don't think, good is not good enough. You can't be good in every category. You've got to be great in a few categories and maybe good at a few other things, but you've got to be better across the board to win as it's become more competitive.
So like niching, right? So is that what you're talking about? Like instead of trying, like in sales, right? You're like, oh, I can sell to everybody. But no, you want to sort of niche down and focus in on this segment. That's how you're going to win versus trying to sell to everybody.
Yeah, a little bit, but I think more about it from a team perspective. I think we just did 6 Types of Working Genius. I can't remember if we talked about that book or not. It's a great book to assess where your working genius is. And I'll break it down real quick, but there's an acronym widget, WIDGET. So it's wonder, invention, discernment, galvanizing, enablement, and tenacity.
Okay.
Simple book, parable style, highly recommend it. Along with that, everybody has 2 areas out of the 6 that they're a working genius, 2 of them that are their frustrations, and then I think the other 2 are competencies.
Okay.
And so there's an assessment tool. I think it's like $25 online.
Yeah.
We had everybody on the team do it. And we had everybody in the U.S. and we had everybody on the team overseas team do it.
You were all 6. You were.
I am a frustration more than anything else. No, they said I was the frustration on the team more than anything else. But I think the frustration. So you have the obvious ones where you're like, oh, I think that this person will be this. I'm an invention. I'm a problem solver. Right. So I'm going to be an I all day long.
Right.
Wonder. My wife is a wonder. A W drives me insane. Because all she does is keep putting problems on my plate for me to solve. I wonder if we did it this way. Well, what if we do it that way? What about this? I'm like, I already solved 3 of those problems. Get out of the wonder zone, right? So she'll wonder about that stuff. But we did it as a team, and then the team did a great job of putting up each of them on a conference room, like a piece of paper.
Yeah.
And so it's got for the W, who is their genius, and then who is their frustration.
Okay.
And so it would name, and you could see the whole team format on there. You're like, oh shoot, we got 1 person in wonder.
Right.
Or we got 4 people in invention.
Right.
So we're overloaded here, and we don't have enough people here.
You're fired.
Well, maybe we reallocate a little bit. Reallocate a little bit. But that gave us an understanding of the team, because it's really hard if you don't have. I love it. It really brought the whole concept of unique abilities and what you're world class at on an individual level to a team.
Yeah.
Whatever team that might be. You can pick any sport you want, right?
I like that. That's a cool concept.
I absolutely love the book. A guy, I can't remember which guy, a strategic coach recommended it. He said it took EOS and unique abilities and put them into action in the real world. And as soon as he said that, I bought the book, I read it that weekend.
Done.
We all got I was like sold because I love both of those concepts.
Yeah.
And it put it into practice.
Yeah.
Right. And we found significant success finding out where our gaps were. And maybe we were overweighted. I mean, it's like football. Like you watch football and everyone's got, might have how many times have you watch a football game and they lose because of a field goal miss or a punt return mistake or a kickoff return? Nobody talks about special teams until something goes wrong.
Well, yeah.
Offense, defense.
Hey, there's
special
3 parts
teams.
of the game. You got to be good at all.
But who focuses on that? Nobody leads it off with like, listen, these guys have an amazing special teams unit that's going to carry the game for them, right? And they talk about it later. But if you don't win in all aspects of business, we were missing some tenacity, the ability to actually complete the process.
What'd you do? So when you had the grid out, right?
Yeah.
You see all the people and you're like, oh, we're overloaded here. We're underrepresented here.
Yeah. I think it really just brought home the idea that we brought somebody back on board who was with us before a few years ago, and she went over to Amazon and then reached out. She had a baby and said she didn't want to do full time anymore, and reached out to us to come back. And she's great in that enablement tenacity piece. And it was interesting because my right hand person, I'd say Elizabeth, operations manager, she said to me, God, now that we have her back on board, it just kind of feels like things are moving better.
Oh,
and we had just done that. We were missing that last piece of that tenacity of like finalizing. I'm a great idea guy. I'm not that great. I'll power through and finish something. Mm-hmm. But if you're relying on me to make sure and check the box and make sure everybody does all their work, we got a problem.
Yeah.
It ain't going to happen.
I hear you.
I got too many ideas and too many things going on. So it's like we needed somebody on the team to make sure that the things that were...
It got done.
GSD, get it done, baby.
Yeah.
So we had to make sure that we needed that. And I think it allowed us to really figure out how we were missing out and where are there any gaps. It feels like now to me, if whatever the project might be, you need to have each of those aspects on your team. And the book is a great read for that because it goes through like a parable style and uses that example from the book. And you can do it on your own team, even if you have a small team. Really, if you had 3 people and they had different geniuses, you've got all 6 covered.
That would be amazing.
Right. That's the dream scenario. You probably need more than that, really.
Yeah, no, I was going to say like
to cover all.
Yeah.
But as long as you don't have everybody in the same genius and everybody in the same frustration, because it's interesting because what I find is you're drawn to people like you.
Oh, 100%.
So you hire people. You're like, oh, this person likes to solve problems too.
100%.
Great. We're all going to solve problems together and no one's going to actually do the work.
Yeah, it's the worst.
Yeah, and you're like, oh, crap.
Yeah.
Shoot. That
We're
didn't
having a
work
good time.
out.
I like hanging out with you, but we're not getting anything done.
Yeah, I had a former business partner. He and I were very, very similar. We met in grad school, and it was not great from that perspective. We had the exact same skill set,
right?
And that's not great.
No,
you need complementary skill sets. But going back to the self-managing team, I think the idea. I try to give people empower people, give them a lot of autonomy. If anything, I probably err on too much autonomy. Right, I give people. I tend to abdicate as opposed to delegate.
Yeah,
and that's still an area where I can become a better manager for sure, and better owner of the business. We need to do a better job of that delegation as opposed to abdication.
It also depends on the person.
Yeah,
right. Like because it happens to me too. Like I have somebody working for me, and I love just giving them the autonomy to do it. But sometimes there's certain people like, no, I need direction. You need to tell me how to do it, and I've fallen to that many times. And so it's all about reading and knowing who you have, right?
But even if they have the ability, which we have a few people who are great self-starters, they're just going to run through brick walls, they're going to figure out a way to do it. That's amazing. But I find that if we don't delegate and have a clear, it's like a meeting of the minds.
Yeah.
If my expectations are different than your expectations,
right,
there's no way those are going to line up and we're going to come up with an answer and the result isn't going to be happy. No one's going to be happy with the result.
Sure.
So I find that we need to continuously communicate what's in our head and don't assume that they know what's in your head.
Right.
And can you delegate it properly? Right. And if you give the team if you're clear about what you need and what you want, everybody's on the same page. You give them the autonomy to do what they need to do. You have somebody make sure that they manage that those tasks are being done. That's the key, in my opinion, to a self-managing team. And again, I don't think we're experts at this. I think it's a process where we're learning and getting better. And I see the evolution because I've had people in the wrong seats before and it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
You've got to have it all kind of gel together. I go back to sports all the time.
Oh,
right?
Okay, yeah.
Go back to sports. I mean, you have the greatest quarterback in the world, but Tom Brady back there with no offensive line, he's in trouble.
Yeah.
It's game over.
I love like when I'm talking to somebody in their team, they're like, "Oh, we got the wideouts, we got the running back. They have all the position players, like skill players." I'm like, You don't have an offensive line, and they suck the entire year because, yeah, that's just the way it goes.
University of Colorado. Huge fan of Deion Sanders. Huge fan of what he's doing at University of Colorado. Yeah. They have no offensive line.
Yeah.
I mean, they've got some of the greatest skill players in college football, and I'm not a big college football guy, but these guys can fly.
Yeah.
I mean, they are amazing. That quarterback's going to end up in the hospital. Like his son, Shadur, like he is getting just mauled. He got mauled by UCLA last weekend. Yeah. I mean, I thought the guy was going to get killed. I mean, you got to have somebody block.
No, and that really is it when it comes down to it. Like the offensive line is so, I mean, both lines are, that's really where the nuts and bolts. Like San Francisco just acquired, I can't remember his name, but he's a stud defensive lineman. They already have 4 stud defensive linemen. They're going to be so impact because if you go and stop that quarterback, done deal. Yeah. But again, you got to have that offensive line in order to protect them, and that's where the games are won and lost in that sense. And we all look at the skill players.
Yeah, well, that goes back to something we talked about before about vanity, right? It's the vanity. It's the flashy stuff, right?
Yeah.
This is the what really matters. And my goal with the business and any business we have is to try to put the people in the right spot, and not just for the business, but for themselves. And what I like about that is, and you've experienced this, I'm sure, working for yourself, is that when you're in the right spot and you're in your sweet spot, it's easy, man. Yeah. It comes easy, it flows, it's smooth, you have more energy. You do something you hate, man, that's a long hour or 2 hours or 3 hours, right? You struggle through it. You tend to procrastinate more. Yeah. You hate it. You don't like doing it. You're like, oh, why am I doing this? That's why I hire a handyman, because I know that I could probably do it. But if it doesn't work out and I don't have the right tool, I'm going to start swearing and throwing things at the wall. So like, I don't even put myself in that position to do it. I don't get enjoyment out of it.
Yeah.
So going back to the management of the team and the self-managing team, and our dream is to have a self-multiplying team. But self-managing team is key so that there are clear goals. There are KPIs, key performance indicators. We always struggle with that one for each role, trying to get better at that so that we all want to be in the same boat, paddling in the same direction. Mm-hmm. That's the number one goal. Then self-multiplying. How does the team have the ability to bring on more of those great who's that can help the business grow without me being the one that goes out and finds the who, goes through my network, finds somebody who knows the who, right? We've got to find a different way for the team to be empowered, to have enough like traction to build that feedback loop. That's the dream.
So somebody listening, like what's the first thing, like building the team is the first part, but what's your advice to get them getting to that point where...
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, first of all, I'd say self-awareness, understanding what you're great at, understanding your unique abilities, what you're great at. That's step one. Because if you don't know what you're great at and what you're not great at, then...
So that book that you're referencing is a good place that they could check that book out.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Working Genius, 6 Steps of Working Genius would be the second step. I think the first step is really getting awareness about yourself.
Okay.
What are you great at? And think about what are you great at? What do your friends come to you for?
Yeah.
And then Working Genius, saying, okay, because there is a mismatch sometimes between what you're great at and what you like to do.
Sure.
Right. And that was where I was wrong about a few people. I'm like, oh, I think your genius would be this. And they're like, no, it's actually this. I'm like, that's interesting because you're good at this.
Yeah.
You just don't really like doing it.
Right.
So the dream scenario is to match up what you're good at with what you like doing. Right. That's a dream. And I probably made this mistake a long time ago with my wife when I shared these ideas with her. She's probably going to listen to this and hit me whenever she does. But I made the mistake of talking about unique abilities. And then when I ask her to do things that are not her unique abilities, she yells at me and says, "This isn't my unique ability." So I probably made that mistake of sharing this concept with her before.
Exactly.
But the dream scenario is that unique abilities match up with what you're good, what you're good at and what you like to do. And if everybody is in that situation, I feel like people are happier.
Yeah.
People are happier to come to work. They're more productive. They're living a better life. I mean, at the end of the day, listen, we get one trip at this, one chance at this. Let's make it work. Let's do our best work and do something we're having fun at and come to work happy. Like I come to work happy. I miss work. I like coming to the office.
Every day?
Every day. I love coming in, man. It's fun. It's a lot of fun for me. This is fun for me. Like if this wasn't fun, I wouldn't do it.
I was messing with you because I hear you. That's why you do this.
Yeah.
This gets you off.
Yes.
You love this.
Yes. It's
if
fun.
you didn't have this, you'd be miserable.
Yeah. If I didn't have, I the whole retire thing.
Yeah.
Like it feels like
at this point, I don't ever see
me.
that, but it may happen. But
I don't see it. I don't understand what retire means. Like I think a lot of times when people think retire, like they're done, and I'm like, well, but you're done with what? You're done with things you don't like to do? Totally get that.
Yeah.
you're done growing and learning and living, that seems like a death sentence.
I also think that's more of the other side. We're entrepreneurs. This is the other side where they're like working Monday through Friday, the grind to get to that point. So I think that relates to them a lot more than people like us. We're retiring. They're like, I'm done, 65, I'm cashing in. Like they're working, they're doing the system and they just live through it.
Yeah, they live through it.
As we know, once you actually retire, if you retire and stop doing stuff, you die very soon after that. Yeah. That's just a fact.
Well, we were, my wife and I took the kids for fall break recently up to northern Arizona. So we went to the Grand Canyon, Horseshoe Bend, what's the other one? The Slot Canyons. We did a little trip up there for a week and then came back through Sedona. And we met this older couple from Canada. I think she was 80 and he was 75. And the Slot Canyons, there's some hiking and there's some stairs up and down. And they had some, walking sticks with them. And they were like, this is probably going to be one of our last trips. And, they're like, it was sad.
Man,
it was super sad.
That's brutal.
Yeah, they were like, we've been on vacation for a while, and they were struggling. I mean, they were like to get into the van to get shipped, and it was tough. And they're like, we don't know how much, we want to get out there and do things while we can. And I feel like, this goes back to what we always talk about, which is, I think being an entrepreneur is the recipe for an extraordinary life. And he is an entrepreneur. This guy was an entrepreneur, and he had his own CPA firm and had it for 40 years. But they were out traveling now and doing more. But then you're like, wait a minute, they're running out of time. Like they can't do things physically that they used to be able to do. And so I look at that stuff and just think about it all the time. I don't want to miss out on those times, taking the moments and spending them with your family, doing the things while you can do them. I mean, it's great to save up money and save up a few more bucks and have a few dollars at the end of the day. But I think life is about the experience. And going out and living and doing the things you need to do.
And how do you experience? You live in the moment. You're in the present. You're being mindful. You are aware of what's going on. And we talk about that. I know I talk about this all the time is we live in the past and in the future, that's not living. But that's probably 95% of our lives, our days are just on autopilot and we're just going through it. The more you can wake yourself up and actually experience and sit there and really appreciate what's going on. Like just this right here, you and I talking, right? Like we could take this for granted because we're just doing our stuff, whatever. But really when you look at it, it's like, this is cool. I enjoy this. And it's when you actually take that and for those, you're getting time is short, as you say, and so it's just like be in the moment and enjoy today for what it is and what you're doing, and life will be better no matter what.
Yeah, and I try to bring that into the business aspect. Like I integrate everything. I want everybody on my team, and not everybody wants to be an entrepreneur, but we've had some people that have worked here, and they said, I want to be an entrepreneur, and I said, great, we'll support you the best I can. And one of them, he left earlier this year to start his own agency, Amazon agency, and I talk to him regularly and encourage him and try to help him in any way I can. I mean, I love that. I want people to live their best life. We've had people that, say they want to do something, come work for us, and then they leave, and they kind of regress. Like we gave them responsibility and opportunities, and it was too much for them. And maybe it stressed them out or something. And they went back to something that was less responsible and less of a difficult position. And so, not everybody wants to do that. But if we can help you in your life in any capacity, I want everybody to live the best life they can. And I think business and entrepreneurship is a way to support that. So
love it.
Anyway, that's my take on all the mistakes I've made, which we could do probably another 4 or 5 hours on team. I don't know if I'm the guy or the expert on that, but we're always constantly trying to get better. And for us, it's Kaizen. It's like small, continuous improvement. How do we get better at each of the things that we do? And how do we get a better team? Because when things start to click on the team, it's night and day difference. Things start to move faster, and you start moving with a certain pace that doesn't happen when you can feel a dysfunctional team. So I'm excited about the direction we're going, and I can't wait till we can get this dialed in, and then the self-multiplying team later.
Love it.
So great talking to you, buddy.
Always.
If you enjoyed today's podcast, please subscribe, leave a review, and share with friends. Visit I'mTheOne.com and ask me anything. And as always, stay curious and never stop becoming the one.